And
welcome back
to Caribbean Liquid Lunch. We're very happy to be here. I'm Hugh, and this is
DBoss. Yes, and we have a great person here today that we're blessed to be. And she, her name is Angelita Elliott, but they call her AJ also Elliott.
AG.
G's
for Grace.
Grace. Yes, and she has a book called Mona's Secret Diaries.
Yeah,
okay.
And this is only the first book of 3. It's a trilogy, and it's an amazing story. We've only heard a little bit about it, but we want to bring Angelita on right now so we can get the full story. There she is.
Hi, good afternoon. How are you? Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here today.
Yeah, yes. It's so nice to have you here. And you've been, it's just really nice to meet you and do this interview. So welcome.
Thank you.
Well, we're here, and you know, Angelita has a lot of different talents and stuff. But can you tell everybody where you're from?
Okay, I was born in Jamaica, Kingston, and lived in St. Catharines until I was about 9-10 years old, and I came to Canada. I've been here ever since. I still love Jamaica and the Caribbean. I love to travel throughout the Caribbean, and I find wherever I go, I still feel at home, you know?
Everywhere?
Everywhere I've been to in the Caribbean, I feel at home. And when I went to especially place like St. Martin's and Antigua, I was surprised to hear so much reggae music playing all the time. But I realized that we are such a community that no matter where we go, I could go into the market anywhere in the Caribbean and feel like I'm in the market in Jamaica, you know,
wow.
Carnation Market. So that whole experience really endeared me to all of the Caribbean island, because no matter where I went, I still felt at home, and I felt it was a natural feeling of being there. So I'm always excited to travel anywhere there, because it's just beautiful jewels.
Mm-hmm. Okay, wait, I got a question.
Go ahead.
Okay. So now you came to Canada when you were before your 10th birthday, right?
Correct.
And I'm just, what was that like for you? First of all, to hear the news that you were moving to Canada, and then to actually move here. I mean, what was that really like for you?
Well, back in those days, your family didn't really tell you any details. Like these kids today, they're very privileged. Like back in my day, you just heard, yeah, go foreign to your mother. And that was about the entire conversation. And I remember when I first came here, I was completely traumatized because, first of all, I came in the middle of winter. It was January 17th, 1977. Wow. And I think Canada just gone through, Toronto in particular, had just gone through a major snowstorm. And so I remember watching, when I came out of the plane, and I had this little suitcase, and I walked across the tarmac, and I was like, oh my God, it's freezing. And then they bought me this little coat, and I put it on, and I never saw snow before. And so for me, snow was snow cone, and you flavored it, and, you know, you ate it. Right? It was quite traumatic having that first experience. And I remember the first couple of days, I saw the news, and because then we had just gone through a snowstorm, I saw people jumping out of their second story bedrooms out through the window onto this pile of snow to try and get into their garage to dig out their front door. And I was like,
that was a bad year for snow.
Right. No, it was just horrible. And I remember when I first saw, the one thing I identified with from the news was when there was a commercial on KFC, and I thought KFC was a Jamaican company. So I'm like, oh yeah, there's a KFC. You know, when you're a kid, you don't know any better.
Yeah.
And it's only later I realized it's an American franchise. You
Right.
know, so it's those experiences that you have that you never forget, and that first year of winter still impacts me to this day. And my worst winter experience was when I went tobogganing for the first time, and it was all joy and fun until my last time down the hill, when I lost my gloves and I lost my hat, and I ended up face first in the snow and had to defrost afterwards. I've never been in so much pain. I cried all the way home until about 2-3 hours later, trying to just defrost my fingers because I
Oh.
thought I had frostbite. You know,
Mhm.
and when you get home, you don't know any better. You put your hands under the warm water to warm up. Oh my God.
Well,
It
yeah, that
was
could
just absolute punishment.
It
And
can-
so now, even today, I'm like, okay, the only winter sport is staying inside.
is what?
Staying inside.
Oh,
To
Yeah.
stay inside.
Right.
But that's not really a sport. That's just avoiding outside. Like what we're doing now.
Exactly. Well, I had 4 children, and I took them tobogganing, and I did the winter sport with them, and the ice skating and all that. But trust me, I was very close to the car at all times. And as soon as I got cold, I was like, I'll be right back. And I was waving to my kids. I went to the car, warmed up, and that's been my winter experiences through my shared experience with my children.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that was a bad year for snow. 77. I think we had. I was able to walk or ski that year from the ground up to my roof,
Mm-hmm,
the roof of our house.
Yeah, I could not believe it. I mean, I was just watching the news in awe because, you know, I'm coming from a tropical island. Nobody told me I was coming to a winter country. You know, you were just told you're going to foreign, and that was it. No explanation. So the whole thing of seeing snow for the first time, and it's not snow cold like I'm used to, right? I've never forgotten it, and that was my first real experience being here.
Wow.
And then I'm curious because, of course, for kids, the thing is you got to go to school, right? And
Mhm.
I'm sure school was very different. Well, I don't know, but different in Canada than it was in Jamaica. What was your? Did you get traumatized in school, or what was your experience?
Well, I experienced racism for the first time in school when I came here, and I ended up beating up 2 twin sisters, if I recall correctly, because they just annoying me along the way. But I was so innocent of racism that I didn't understand that they were being racist to me, and it was only after my other peers said, well, why aren't you reacting like, you know, they're being a racist, and they, you know, it that's how that whole experience came about for me. And then, of course, my dialect, speaking Patois, even though I spoke perfect English, because that was mandatory in our home with my grandmother, we had to speak the Queen's English, and Patois was a secondary language that we spoke amongst our friends and not with our parents and the rest of our family. But the slight changes in how we spoke became an issue for my teachers, and I remember they kept saying that I have to go back and do English all over again because I'm not speaking English. And I thought, like, what am I speaking then? You know? So there was those challenges in adapting to the language here and the language back home and how we spoke, but and the system here also, because when you come here as a child, no matter what your intellect, they always had a tendency to put you back in your academics or make you feel that you are not smart enough.
Mhm.
And for me, the system throughout the Caribbean is so much more intense, and also it is way more sophisticated on so many different levels that most young people that come here, they have a higher level of educational courses and programming than here. Because when you're here, if you fall behind, you fall behind. But when I was growing up, we had to all recite the alphabet together. We all had to know our multiplication. So it was repeated, like 1 times 1 is 2, 2 times 2 is 4. And so whether we were slow or not, or not as advanced as other pairs in our classes, we still got the fundamental, and we had to get the fundamental. And so for me, the system in the Caribbean exposes you to a lot more opportunities to engage in international learning and historical learning than here in Canada, because we got a world perspective on education. That's just my personal belief.
I think it might depend a little bit on where you go to school. I mean, I feel I got a fairly good education. I mean, I understand probably that there's a little bit more rigor, because I think the more advanced the education system becomes, the worse it becomes.
Yeah.
They don't teach English or math in the fundamentals. I'm not sure if it's a plan to dumb down the education system and dumb down the new generations, but I think that the more money they spend on the education in Canada, the worse it becomes.
And also, back when I was growing up, we still had the cane. So I mean, you were kind of encouraged to follow the program and become your best self, because that cane was the discipline factor. Not that I'm advocating it, but it was a part of my upbringing that and many Caribbean young people's upbringing that kind of kept them focused more so than within this system where kids and children have so much rights. As a matter of fact, for me, they almost have more rights than the parents have rights now, because of all these rules and regulations that's been put in place to keep children happy. And sometimes for me, discipline and keeping a strong focus is the only way we can have successful young people moving forward. You can't give them too many options. And I think it's a parent's responsibility to give them a little bit of option, but also to be the guide in their future development in every aspect, whether it's their education or learning how to survive in society or function in society, or even as people and human beings. I always believe that the parents are the first foundation. But then again,
I want to ask you about this book, Mona's Secret Diaries, Book 1, Shadows of the Past, The Chronicle. And this is the book you wrote.
yes.
So
part 1 of 3.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying that because you looked at me.
I looked at you because I thought you were going to ask something. So, what inspired you to write this novel?
Well, I've always loved writing, and I really started taking my writing seriously about 20 years ago, when I first started doing little stories here and there. And I remember that I just wrote for my own pleasure. And about 15 years or so ago, I started Mona's Secret Diaries. And it was more about her as an adult and her family and her daughter and the relationship that they have. And so when I finished those two books, my mentor and editor, Olive Rose Steele, said to me, "Well, Angelita, you're not Norman Mailer, you have to really bring this story to fruition." And one of the things she wanted me to do was go back and not rewrite it, but tell Mona's story from the beginning, right? Because when I wrote about Mona originally, it was as an adult. She was married, she had a husband and a daughter, and she was collapsing in herself with lots of issues. And we meet Mona in book one of this series, looking out her window as an adult and having trouble within her personal life. And she's given her first diary to her daughter because she's held a lot of past secret in herself away from her family. So because of these challenges, even though she has all this success, she's wealthy, I mean, she has everything that one would think would make you happy in life, there was still this nagging problem that she had and issues that she had from childhood. So it goes right from meeting her in the first couple of pages as a successful adult, and it goes right into her memory as a 10-year-old child, which when she was 10, she lost her mother. And so the story really evolved from there. And when I started writing this book, follow-up book in 2016, it was in the summer, and I started in June and I finished in August, end of August. So it was 3 months of intense writing, and this story would not let me go. So from 5 o'clock every morning till sometimes 1 o'clock the next morning, I was writing non-stop.
Wow.
I only got up to like eat and make lunch or dinner for my children, use the bathroom, get some more tea, water, whatever. But I was just completely hooked on this story, and I couldn't walk away from it until it was finished. Now, at the end of August, when I finished the last page, it was well over 900 pages. So I went back to my editor. She says, "Well, you're not a normal mailer. This is not the Executioner song at 1,056
Right.
pages. You got to split up the book." So I decided to split it up. And when I went back into the book, it naturally split itself up into 3 different books because there was cliffhangers that ended the first book that made you look forward to the second book. And so I just continued to finish up all the books along the way. And this year, the first book came out on Amazon.com. And I'm very, very proud and excited about it. It's about 10-year-old Mona Amanda Johnson, and you go through her life and the people that surround her after her mom's death, and how her mom influenced her in life and in death, and all the people around her, and the kind of strength that it took for her to move on from that sudden death of her mom, and the people around her embracing her, supporting her. But it's not just about family or Mona's journey. It's about the people that surround her. There's also family, deep, dark family secrets. There is murder. There is lies. There's injustice. There's so many different components. Plus, there's a lot of love and family and community that's in it. So you get all these different components of life. And then also, because it was a business that the mother ran, you also get to meet all the people along the way that she interacted with as a business person, and how these people have connected with Mona and help her along in her journey.
Okay.
Boy, we got
We got
a lot to
dissect here.
okay.
I was going to ask you, and I know she's Angelita's going to ask us to read something, but I want to ask about this particular chapter 12, The Secret Keeper.
Okay, The Secret Keeper is one of my favorite chapters because The Secret Keeper is about Mrs. Cooker. And Mrs. Cooker is one of the main supportive characters of Mona and her mother Mabel. And Mrs. Cooker is one of those people that you meet in a small town or a community that supports everybody. So she takes in the people that don't have any home, people abandon children on her doorsteps, seniors that don't have a home or family. They come, they get a meal. Everybody, all the children in the community gather at her house for some lemonade or some special treat that she makes. There's a lot of food in this book too. So as my great grand aunt says, she's 89 years old and she's reading the book, and she says, every time I pick up this book, I'm hungry because there's so much food and recipes in it along the way. But Mrs. Cooker is also, in her many lives, she was also a midwife, and she became the secret keeper because she helped to bring a lot of children into the world as the only person in that community that was a midwife. So, and people started depending on her and telling her their secrets or asking her to do special things to correct a wrong, like to pass on an inheritance to a child that's an illegitimate child or whatever. So she became the secret keeper where everybody confided and trusted her, right? But she also keeps secret that is affecting the people in our lives today. So even though she's doing a good thing, it actually turns sometimes into a bad thing because of those secrets that she's kept, it's affected the quality of life of other people, including Mona, which now she is destined to protect because her mother is now gone, and how those secrets play out through Mrs. Cooker's world and how it affects her personally. So I love her because she's a giver in the community, but she's also the person that everybody goes to when they need to correct something in their life before they die. And so everybody trusts Mrs. Cooker and respects her because most of them were birthed by her or her mother in this town. And so and everybody, even though there's now a doctor in the community that serves the various different communities that surround the town of Fairbanks, she is the one that people still depend on because whenever they need to correct a ill, she's the one that they go to all the time.
So I got to ask you before somebody, either me or DBoss, reads the book, reads from the book. So Fairbanks, is that a fictional town? And because you grew up in Kingston,
right,
at least up until you were 10 years old,
right?
And I'm wondering how much of this book is autobiographical or
no, it's a fiction. It's a town. It's all of this is out of my imagination. And when I started researching on how to write a novel, and they said you have to plot it out and you have to map it out and you have to write out a beginning, a middle, of end, like all the formal ways that you're supposed to sit down and compose and construct your novel. None of that worked for me. As soon as I tried to do that, there was a blank. I mean, blankety blank. Yeah. I couldn't think of anything. But once I allowed my imagination and my mind to just allow the story to tell itself, I mean, I was sitting there for sometimes 15 hours. And it's only when I was dozing off from exhaustion and I was falling into my laptop, then okay, it's time to go to sleep. Right. And I packed up everything and went back inside because this was all in my backyard. And then the next morning, I would read the paragraph before or a couple of lines, and I put my hand on the keyboard, and the story would just continue. And I'm like, oh my God. And so while I was writing, I was discovering this story myself because it was not preconceived. It was just coming out of me, and I couldn't stop it. So I allowed it to just tell itself in its whole version of whatever came out, and this is how it happened.
Amazing. So Yeah, I thought you had a question, DBoss, but I have a lot of questions. So that's great. That's they say like great sculptors. That the figure is already in this piece of stone.
Yes.
And they just have to reveal it. And it sounds like you sort of had the same process. And it sounds to me like you're a natural writer. Like you are probably born to write. And I understand that you started writing when you were very young. How old were you when you started writing? When you started dabbling with that art form?
Well, when I was much younger, I had a lot of trouble sleeping. So my doctor told me to get a notebook and write out your thoughts or whatever. And I used to do that. That never helped because half the night I'd be filling up the notebook. And then when I got older, I just started writing whatever was in my head. And I would just write and write and write. And it was just purely for my own pleasure. And as I got older, as other people read the stories, they're like, oh, this is pretty good, But for me, I always encourage people to just write. It doesn't matter what comes out.
Just start writing.
Just do it,
Yeah.
and you never know where it will take you. Like I never started out thinking about I'm going to publish this book.
Mhm.
I was just writing it. And when I finished the first manuscript, I was like, oh yes, I'm finished. But I never thought the next step, but once my mentor started reading it and she's like, oh, this is really, really good. You got to put it out there. It started another phase of the journey. When I was in high school, I remember one of my teacher telling me I'm a natural writer. I'm just a natural writer. I'm a natural storyteller. But asked me to put together a formal written document or any kind of formal writing that you would have to go through the process of journaling the whatever you write. I always had challenge because I write how I speak. And most people cannot do that, my teacher said. Most people do not write how they speak. So that's where I was told was my natural talent.
And that's what you need for writing novels, right?
Yes.
You need to be able to write with, the way people talk.
Right. And you have to allow yourself to your inner soul to tell the story. Sometimes people get caught up in, oh, I want to do this or that. But once you allow yourself to because there's all these stories inside each of us that's just waiting to come out. And if we allow ourselves the freedom to allow that to come out, you would be amazed.
So are you working on some new stories?
Well, I'm actually finishing up the second book right now. It's almost finished. I have 2 chapters out of it that I'm working on right now. And then I'm going to go on to the third book and brush that up for fall of next year, because the book 2 and 3 will be coming out in the spring and fall of next year. And then I'm looking at book 4 to finish it off in early 2022.
Okay, so now you've got your I know people can't see it, but I know you got your laptop over there.
Yes.
Now, are you going to read something, or what? Or are we reading something, or how do you want to do this?
Would you like to read something?
Mm-hmm. What do you want me to read?
Well, okay. You said you were interested in finding out a little bit more about Mrs. Cooker, and then I would like, because when you self-publish, you become your own editor, your own marketer, your own promoter. Because you haven't been picked up by a publishing company, so you have to do all those things for yourself. So I promote through excerpts in the book. So far, I've released about 10 different excerpts in the book. In particular, I was going to read at least one for you, and then you could possibly read something about Mrs. Cooker, the Secret Keeper, that you're so intrigued by.
So you're going to read first, then?
You want me to? Okay.
Yeah, and then while you're doing that, DBoss can find what she wants to read.
Okay. Yeah. So this is excerpt number 2, and it's called Mrs. Cooker's Special Dinner Guest. And when you come to Mrs. Cooker's house, because she's taking in all these people, there's at least 10-15 people in the house with children at all times, but there's always an empty seat with a table set for anyone who comes, and that's a very Caribbean thing, that most people, they set an extra setting at the table just in case somebody shows up.
That's great to
But
do that. Yeah.
yeah, Mr.
Sometimes
In case I
it's not.
show up.
Sometimes it's not. My mother sometimes would say, no one's showing up today. Go eat all this food.
Right. So
No, I just before you start, I just want to say, like, probably just a couple of minutes worth of reading. Just
Okay.
Yeah,
You
because
know,
very,
I mean,
very quickly.
plus we want
it's
people
not
to
a
buy
lot.
the book anyway.
Oh yeah, it's not a lot. So Mrs. Cooker had invited Mr. Anderson, the widower, her latest suitor, and by all accounts, Mr. Abram Anderson was a loyal, dedicated man, never found himself in some of the embarrassing situations the other men in town found themselves. There were stories of men running down Main Street, half naked, trying to get dressed on the run, while dodging stones, purses, bottles, brooms, bricks, knives, and other lethal objects as their wives could get their hands on, and the townspeople gathered along their escape route to look on. Some never even made it into their skivvies and were forced to run while trying to cover up their. Can I say ass and penis? Okay, I just said it. Ass.
We'll fix that in editing.
Ass and penis, and had to duck, dip, dodge, and sometimes dive while protecting their heads from rocks and other items that zing past. And as all good townspeople, the people of Fairbanks use this opportunity as their weekly free entertainment that fuel the gossip mills until the next installment. Townspeople whispered, "Did you hear about Mr. So-and-so? How his wife caught him?" The men teased mercilessly their friends and associates. Women giggled and children called out Mr. So-and-so for having a small penis and scattered quickly as if the chase was on.
Wow.
Where do you get these crazy ideas?
But I'm sure everybody can identify with that scene somewhere in their life, right?
Well, I've got a picture
Maybe
of it
not
in my mind right
naked.
now.
Maybe not the naked running down the street part, but the knocking and the diving and the dipping and the dodging objects fly past their heads.
Was that part of you?
Of course not, DBoss.
Okay. Well, because we got to speed it up a little bit. I'm gonna read. Okay, I took something out from the chapter 12, the same one.
Okay.
And yet she felt it was a part of her destined mission in life. Saw it when she showed up on the strangers' doors, explaining why she was there. They were always stunned by the newfound knowledge she brought, even if it could not bring back their loved one who was murdered or just disappeared or suffered in some injustice. At least they now had answers they did not have before. Those with wills, inheritance, money, and other gains is what like an answer to our prayers if the dirty, stinking bastards, as most of the women and the children called them, left the gift. And they would change their disdain to, "God bless that stinking bastard. May God rest his rotten soul in hell." The gift was a bonus for their permanent exit. Well,
Son of a gun.
Well,
that's why she's a secret keeper, because
yes.
she also helps people fulfill their final wish to make amends in their miserable life that they have committed, whatever crime it was or misdemeanor, right?
Mm-hmm. So she held most of the secrets for the community, and she knew, because there's always somebody in the movie that everybody goes and opens the door,
Right.
and they sit, and they actually sit and tell all their things too. There's somebody in that community.
Always.
You know, like I was in Barbados. My grandmother was, I guess, that person, one of those ones in the community that everybody went to. And she cooked, and she always had food for them and everything. So
exactly.
there's, you know, in everybody's family, I have somebody.
Yes.
You know?
And Mrs. Cooker is one of those people that is beloved by the community also. So no one wanted to even say anything bad about her, even if they didn't like her. Right? They never said anything bad about her because they knew that their wives or their mom or somebody else was going to punish them for that. And at the end of the day, their family still went to her, even though there was all this new modern doctors ready to help and facilitate whatever healthcare need they had.
Well, you know, Angela, it's been really great having you here and stuff. And we're just going to show the book when she sends it out to you.
That's the autographed copy.
That's the autographed copy, and it looks beautiful because she said she didn't want to just give. In off air, she told us that she didn't just want to give a book that everybody just walks in their hand. Well, she said it in a little patois, Jamaican patois, she said. But she could tell you just before we get it, you know, sign out, where you can buy the book, where you can find it.
I just want to say, too, that if you give everybody a copy of this book for Christmas, you won't have to do any wrapping because it comes pre-wrapped.
Right. Right. And it's different wrappings too. And also, just another note, whenever you buy one of the book, 10% of all sales will go to BAM, which I'm an African inventors curator for BAM, Black African Museum, and it showcases African inventors from around the diaspora. I go to schools, universities, colleges. Well, that's kind of off right now with COVID, and special events. But the museum is important because it recognizes African people's contributions from around the world to science and technology and medicine and all the different areas that we contribute to. And it also inspires our young people to become and do and be their greatest selves. So because we're not a nonprofit organization, this is one of the ways I raise funds for the museum. It is the largest museum of its kind in North America. And I want to continue on this journey with it to inspire not only the young people, but older people too.
Well, we should, that's a whole separate topic for an interview.
I know,
we should get back to that.
know.
But it's a great reason to buy the book because it's supporting the great cause.
Yes. So, we do want to thank Angelita, the author, for coming here and telling everybody about this wonderful book, the Mona's Secret Diaries. And, I encourage people to read that. And you can order it. You can order it globally, correct?
Right. So you can get it on www.amazon.com /authors /AG Elliott. So either you can find it by the name of the book, or you can find it under AG Elliott. Okay. Right. And you can contact me with the contact information that will be posted. And if you want to purchase a copy, it's $25. 10% goes to the museum. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, fantastic. Great to have you here. Thank you for doing this. And you know what? I don't read that many books, but when I pick this up and I read a sentence or a paragraph, actually, I really want to read this book. So thanks for coming in today.
Thank you so much.
And I think, you know what? We're going to be right back with the commercial.
Right after the commercials, we'll be back.
We'll be back home with commercials.
With our next guest here on Caribbean Liquid Lunch. Thanks for tuning in.